There have been a lot of attempts over the years to blend science fiction with horror. You would think the two genres would go together hand in hand, except usually the end result can be less than amusing. And let's face it, there are some franchises that have absolutely no business going in that direction. Alien's one of those films that starts in space and belongs there. Since the film's sequel, James Cameron's Aliens, the Alien franchise seems to have gone into a more action-driven climate. But the very first film, released in 1979 under the direction of Ridley Scott, was a simple little slasher movie that takes place aboard a drifting cargo ship. As a crew of space truckers makes their way toward Earth, they get an abrupt signal from an alien planet in the near vicinity, and per their contracts they go to investigate, obviously.
Like what? Seems she has intercepted a transmission of unknown origin. She got us up to check it out.
SOS.
I don't know.
Human.
Unknown.
The planet they land on appears to be deserted until they stumble onto the remains of a derelict ship, which is infested with eggs. The eggs actually house these spider-like things called facehuggers, which is how the whole transformation process begins. That's what's so fascinating about these films is the whole alien life cycle. It starts out with an egg, which, when it hatches, unleashes a facehugger. The facehugger then latches itself onto a human host, shoving its tail down the person's throat and laying an embryo deep within the human's chest cavity. It might sound perverted, and that's because it is. The creator of the Alien was famed artist H.R. Giger, who would go on to design the Alien for the Species films. Giger originally wanted the alien to be a more sexual creature. It's no coincidence that a male character serves as the human host. This was done in order to portray a sense of violation or a rape, which is typically something that's depicted with women. I didn't notice this until recently, but there's a controversial scene where Lambert, the only other female character aside from Ripley, apparently gets raped by the xenomorph, the alien in adult form. She dies off screen, but when the xenomorph gets her, she's fully clothed. However, we hear her screaming, and maybe even moaning, in the background. The next time we see her, she's hanging naked and bleeding from the rafters. It's been implied that the alien rapes its victims before killing them, even though it's never been confirmed to my knowledge. So getting back to the alien, one of the most famous and disturbing scenes in the film is when the chest burster bursts through one of the crew members' chest. The chest burster scampers off somewhere, and the next time we see it, it's a fully grown xenomorph, and it's called that because it seems to evolve depending on the DNA of its original host. If a female gets infected, it more than likely becomes a queen, and in Alien 3, the creature bursts from a dog, which explains its ability to move on all fours. There's also a side story involving crew member Ash, played by Ian Holm. I won't ruin it, but it's quite a twist and makes us question the loyalty of the other crew members. It's also the one point in the film that feels more science fiction than horror. The original is usually praised for its creepy atmosphere and mysterious death sequences, most of which happen off-screen. Last year, mostly during some of my Halloween reviews, I ranted and raved about how movies that lack gore are less effective, and in most slashers, that's the case in my opinion. But Alien works because most of the time we're dealing with the unknown. When there's a serial killer involved, although we don't always know their identity, we know that it's a psychopath, a human, and that it can be dealt with. There's usually no surprises. But with Alien, no one knew what this thing was going to look like, and when we finally see it, it's quite the movie spectacle. Even though we can clearly see its mechanical limitations, the design and the sounds it makes as it stalks after its prey are terrifying. It bleeds acid, which actually works to its favor, and it takes a lot of forms. It's one of those movies that continually gets more disturbing the deeper we go in. The finale where we see the alien's nest is heart-pounding and is where the movie reaches its visual peak. The only negative thing I have to say is that it tends to be a bit on the slow side. The first act consists mainly of dialogue until we leave the derelict ship behind, but afterwards the quietness and the unsettling scenery add to the atmosphere. This is one film that never ceases to shock or amuse. Even the characters, who seem like your basic everyday cardboard cutouts, have some pretty colorful dialogue that makes them stand out amongst the norm.
If they find what they're looking for out there, does that mean we get full shares?
Don't worry, Parker. You'll get whatever's coming to you.
Look, I'm not going to do any more work. We get this straightened out.
Brett, you're guaranteed by law to get a share.
What?
Why don't you just fuck off?
What?
There's no substitute for this one, and even the sequels don't quite match the subtle balancing act of eerie suspense mixed with an unsettling calm. From start to finish, Alien is a unique little horror film that was masterfully directed and wonderfully executed.
You are my lucky star. You are You.